In this video, I bought an old landscaping business. Starting with just a pickup truck and a lawnmower, I'm about to build a massive business empire. I'll be honest, it's going to be pretty tough. Will I go broke or become rich? We'll find out in this video. Subscribe to the channel and let's get started. I'm about to arrive in the town where we plan to start our own lawn mowing business. A road sign appeared on the horizon. The town of Alma is ahead. This place will be our home for a long time, and here we'll try to earn as much money as possible. Since there's still a lot of work ahead, we won't waste any time and we'll head straight into town. Driving through the center, I noticed a sign about a plot of land for sale. I need to remember this place. It might be just right for growing our business. For now, I decided to stop by the nearest cafe to grab a bite. The road wore me out, and I was terribly tired. Over lunch, I heard an interesting bit of news. The land that's now for sale used to belong to a company that did groundskeeping and lawn mowing. That's exactly what we need. The owner, however, would only be available in an hour, so I decided to walk around town and get a better look. The hour flew by. I returned to the pickup and headed to the meeting place. There, I was greeted by the owner. A rather pleasant man, I must say. The plot turned out to be small, but it had everything we needed. A garage for equipment, a small house to spend the night in, and an old shed that I'll probably get rid of. He asked $40,000 for it, exactly the amount I had in my account, so I gladly bought the property, and now it was ours. After the former owner left, it was time to take a closer look at the property and do a bit of cleaning up. First, I headed to the large garage. Upon opening it, I saw piles of trash and cardboard boxes. But among all that junk, I found exactly what we need right now: a lawnmower and a manual fuel pump. Though, for now, I don't know whether they actually work. After that, I went to check what was in the second garage, but unfortunately, it was just more garbage. A bit disappointing, of course, but nothing we can do about it. On my way back, I noticed a homemade washing station next to the large garage. We could use it to clean our equipment. I decided to test it right away and tried it out on our pickup. Luckily, everything worked perfectly, and the truck was shining like it had just come out of the showroom. After finishing up, I put the washer back in place and went to clear out the clutter in our large garage. First, I pulled out the lawnmower. I was really curious about it, but unfortunately, when I tried to start it, it turned out to be broken. Maybe I'll be able to fix it in the future, but for now, let's move on. By the wall, I noticed a grass catcher. Looks like it's a container from a large lawnmower. I think selling it could bring us a decent starting sum. I also decided to check out the manual brush cutter. When I picked it up, I saw that the fuel tank was empty, so I definitely need to buy a small canister and test it out. For now, I took all the equipment that could be useful outside and started selling off all the junk and useless materials from the garage. They didn't cost much individually, but there was a lot of it, so I managed to make just over €700. Now the garage is completely empty. I decided to go ahead and buy some gasoline to test the brush cutter. I tossed the grass container into the pickup bed to sell it on the way. We really need money right now. After loading everything up, I got into the pickup and headed to the store. Around back, I sold the container and got almost $900 for it. Not bad at all, I must say. While I was there, I also bought a gas canister for the brush cutter. It cost $75. I threw it into the pickup bed and headed back to the lot. First, I parked the pickup in the garage, then unloaded the canister, refueled the brush cutter, and tested if it worked. It turned out to be fully operational, which really made me happy, because now we can earn our first money by mowing grass. Of course, I started with our own lot. It was completely overgrown. I carefully mowed all the grass around the garage, but unfortunately, it started to rain during the job. Since I didn't want to get wet, I decided to take a break until the rain stopped. I brought all the equipment back into the garage, and I went to rest. The next morning, I picked up the brush cutter again and continued working, carefully trimming even the hard-to-reach areas. I cut all the grass around the old garage and our house. Once all the grass on the lot was cleared, I decided to sell the old garage, along with everything inside, for scrap to earn some extra money. That brought in almost $1,000. Of course, I was hoping for more. After selling the garage, I noticed there was still grass underneath it, so I had to mow it. I ran to get the brush cutter and quickly took care of it. After finishing the job, I put the brush cutter back in the garage. Now there was definitely no grass left on the lot. It was time to deal with the broken lawnmower, since we now had enough funds in the account to buy everything needed for repairs. After inspecting it, I realized that restoring it would cost just a bit over $400. Of course, I spent the money, and now we also have a fully working lawnmower. While I was working on the lot, word quickly spread around town that I was mowing lawns, and soon the first client showed up. Without wasting time, I loaded the lawnmower into the pickup bed and headed to the job site. Upon arrival, I parked carefully near the house, unloaded the mower, and got to work. The job turned out to be simple, and the pay was decent. It does take quite a bit of time though, but eventually we'll be able to buy equipment that speeds up the process. When I finished, the yard looked much better, and we earned $300 for the job. Back at the lot, I decided to invest in advertising and replace the old banner left by the previous owners with my own to attract more clients. That cost $500, and by tomorrow it should be in place. I also needed to remove a bush growing in the middle of the lot. Since I didn't have the right tool, I headed to the store. There, I noticed that construction was underway nearby. We'll find out soon what's being built. In the store, I picked out an axe for $50, more than enough for the job. Back home, I chopped down the bush, cut it into pieces, and loaded everything into the pickup. I decided to take it straight to the sawmill outside town. The trip took some time, but they accepted the wood and paid just over $300. After that, I loaded the lawnmower and headed out to another job. Driving past the store, I saw that the construction was in full swing. At the new client's property, the yard was larger than last time. The lawnmower struggled with the larger bushes, so I chopped them down with the axe and continued mowing. 2 hours later, the job was finished. We were paid $300 plus $50 in tips for the quality work. That's very motivating. It really encourages you to work fast and do a good job. Since it was already dark, I returned home and went to bed. The next morning, I saw that our new banner had already been installed. It looked quite nice and should attract as many clients as possible. We already had a lawn mowing job scheduled for the morning, so I got into our pickup and headed out. On the way, I noticed that the construction I had seen earlier was now complete, and in its place, a used equipment store had opened. I'll need to stop by and take a look. Maybe we'll find something useful. But first, let's get to the job. This yard turned out to be even bigger than the previous one, so without wasting time, I got to work. First, I cleared all the bushes that were in the way, then began mowing with the lawnmower. We were paid $400 for this job. Not bad at all for such a large yard. On the way home, I decided to visit the new store. There wasn't a lot of equipment, but I did spot a small pickup truck. Maybe we'll buy it in the future, since we still have a brush cutter sitting in the garage that I'm not using right now. I think we could hire a worker to mow lawns with the brush cutter, but for that, he'll need a pickup. That would allow us to increase our company's income several times over. which is of course our goal. For now, I headed to another job. This time, the client warned that a tree had fallen in his yard and it might need to be removed. When I arrived, I was greeted by an elderly man who asked me to cut down the tree and said I could keep the wood. Of course, I agreed. Wood is valuable, which means we could earn some good money. After inspecting the tree, I realized an axe wouldn't be enough, so I ran to the store, which luckily was nearby. There, I bought a chainsaw for $1,000 and immediately returned to the job. I sawed off all the branches that were in the way and started cutting the trunk into pieces that would be easier to load into the pickup. After filling the truck bed, I headed to the sawmill. They paid us just under $1,500 for the wood, a great amount, considering that was only a small part of the tree. Most of the tree was still there, except for a few branches, which I also loaded into the pickup. After moving the truck to a spot where it wouldn't get in the way, I started mowing the yard. I finished the job after dark. I was paid an additional $500 for clearing the area, as the yard was very large. In the end, we earned a decent amount that day, so once I got home, I went straight to bed. The next morning, it was already December. Since during this time of year we had no work, I decided to unload the lawnmower and go sell a few branches that were still in the pickup bed. For them, we received a few $100s. After that, I parked the pickup in its place and waited until the season started again. Waking up in May, I saw that the grass was growing actively, which meant it was time to continue developing our company. I went to the used equipment store to look for a suitable pickup for future workers. Arriving there, I spoke with the seller and saw that the same pickup I had looked at last time was still unsold. After checking its specs, I decided to buy it. In the same shop, there was another identical pickup, but in better condition and with a more powerful engine, as well as a large mower that would be very useful to us. I decided not to be stingy and bought all three vehicles at once. I paid $6,000 for everything and then delivered the two new pickups to our lot. Once there, I started thinking where to park them and eventually came up with the idea to place two small garages on the empty space between the house and the old garage. That cost us $2,000. We also needed to pick up the mower, but loading it manually would be too hard. So I decided to first buy a trailer for transporting equipment. After buying the trailer, I immediately headed off to pick up the mower. I loaded it up and brought it to the lot. When all the new equipment was on site, I decided to wash it so it would look perfect. After polishing everything, I decided to test our new lawnmower. It turned out to be very fast. In just half an hour, the whole area was mowed. Now we just had to wait for the two job candidates to arrive. I went to rest, but within an hour they were already there. We talked, and they immediately got to work. Since I was very tired, I went to rest. The next day, our balance was already nearly $3,000 earned by our workers. I thought that if the business brings in this kind of profit, it would be worth buying them better mowers. I sold their old ones and bought a new one for $3,500 and gave our large mower to the second worker. I parked the mowers next to their garages and went back to rest. While I was taking a break, the workers managed to earn just over $11,000. I realized this was a highly profitable business. I had barely done anything myself. I think we can grow our company even further. And if you enjoyed this video, leave a like and subscribe to the channel. See you all soon!